Greetings to all of you. 1 million downloads a month. That's where we're getting close to because of you and your liking and subscribing. It's you guys are building this great army of the Great Awakening. This is enlightened warriors that are rising up all over the country. And I would even believe that some of our arena events are going to be kicking off this year in a new way. You're going to be the first ones to find out about them. In this special report that I'm giving you today, I want to cover some exciting news. You know, we looked at the blood moon, the scales of justice up there in the heavens. If you didn't catch that story, you really need to. I mean, it's in the news itself, what's going on with the signs in the heavens. But what it really speaks of is God's doing something in the nations. I want you to share this broadcast with your friends. Share, share, share. Because I'm taking what's happening in the Financial Times with China, what's happening in the news with Russia and the Ukraine, what's happening even in North Korea with their bizarre lockdown, tying it into the great American recession and the struggle we have. And I'm showing you how God is literally slowing down and tapping the brakes on the globalist system so that America can have its moment of recovery. Coming, strangely enough, in the next blood moon on November 11th. The next one is the midterm elections. You can't make this stuff up. It's like God has a cosmic clock. And I want you to be able to be tuned in on this. And what's happening is the end game. I did this series all the way back while we were battling in 2019, I think it was. And the series was a preview of sheep and goat states, Florida, Texas, California, New York, and sheep and goat nations. We have Hungary and Poland breaking back from the European Union. It's those nations and states and cities and regions where God's people are legislating the heavens and literally changing the politics and government that's on the earth. In that series, I've got lover, warrior, and king added to it, which is so many lovers out there are distressed by politics. So many get cranky on politics and they lose the anointing. This is how to be a lover, warrior, and statesman, how to walk in the three anointings and keep you balanced. Because sometimes you got to fight. Sometimes you just got to love. You got to know when the weapon works and which weapon to employ. And the end game is going to be big tech, big media, big government, big business, big education, big family protection, and a big, big church now taking all seven. This is the hour. You put these three together, I want you to get them all. They're really economically packaged together. LanceWallnau.com/influence. LanceWallnau.com/influence. Get the bundle because they're all speaking to what's happening right now. Welcome to the new day that we're in right now. This is a powerful new day. You can feel the change in the atmosphere, change in the winds. At the end of the day, the Spirit of God and the Word of God have got to fill the people of God to handle the events that are unfolding in these days. Simply knowing what's happening can be actually maddening, but knowing what's happening and having a prophetic perspective can be empowering. With us today, we have Mercedes Sparks over here. And she'll be joining us in. And feel free, Mercedes, to jump in with any point of clarification if I get carried away with moving too fast or if there's some thought that you think we ought to drill down on for the sake of the people. I give you permission to do that. Jonathan and Carl are over there. I don't know that they're actually working on our other broadcast today, and they're doing some other stuff, but they're here. Necessary resources that we can always go to. So if you have questions, I think we ought to start to look at the chat thread when we do these live.
Yeah.
Because people ask questions, then we could throw them over to the team over there to go research some answers. Because we can't do it while we're talking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was tracking the chat thread the other day with the blood moons. So that was very popular.
Here I am. I'm consuming reams of analysis of what's happening in the economic meltdown in Ukraine, in Davos, in this loss of American sovereignty with the World Health Organization. So I'm in a different world. And the last thing I had on my mind was a blood moon again. I remember John Hagee. This isn't a dig on John Hagee because I really respect him. But I remember in 2014 and 2016, best-selling books proliferating over the blood moon phenomena. And nothing, the most interesting thing that happened was Donald Trump became president in 2018. And it wasn't really what I thought it was going to be, nor was it exactly what we were thinking, war in the Middle East and this and that. So I started to pull back from, I don't like getting trendy. I don't want to ever become, like I always warn my prophetic friends, don't become the National Enquirer. There are millions of hits you'll get at your website by covering every weird, esoteric, event and trying to attribute hidden meaning to it. And you can build an audience off of that. That's what Q has done. And all the Q provocateurs are the hidden, in-depth Gnostic meaning behind this and that. It doesn't get you into the daylight. It gets you deeper into the fog. This is my studied opinion. And the reason why I am trusted in this is because I straddle the fence, in a sense, between Mar-a-Lago, government, what's actually happening with Trump's team, with all the nonprofits that work for conservative causes, from pro-life to the right justices to election integrity. And because I'm in Realville, I sometimes get pulled into that realm, and I have to really pull myself out to go into seeking God, because you can get sucked into that. But when I go into the heavenlies, it gives me a balanced perspective of what's happening. People that just live in the heavenly zone, that don't understand what's going on with the global economy, what's happening with China, what's happening with you. These are all spiritual warfares taking place. But if you don't have the bandwidth to handle the complexity of the data, then you get off on very subjective, theatric, interpretations of events. And it appeals to, I'm sorry to say, it appeals to the audience that wants it simple. And they want the soap opera version. They want the story with the drama and all that. But you're not getting fed. And every now and then Bannon will say, I love Steve in this sense. He's like the coach in the locker room. He looks at it and says, suck it up, grow up. This is what it's like. It's a grind. You have to stay in the battle. That's what we do. We don't quit. And you know what? It wakes me up. It's like, yeah, you know what? That's what the church needs. It needs to stop looking for quick wins and superficial David Goliath scenarios, and Trump's going to be back next week, and the White Hats are working, and the military. Stop it. You're going down the wrong route. And it may meet your emotional need for hope, but it's not rooted and grounded in the reality of what's happening. And then when God really is moving, it gets lost. So now I want to say to you, God is really moving. And he's moving in several ways that most people are missing. And let me just tell you what I'm talking about. The United States is in a $30 trillion tailspin with Biden and his knucklehead policy people. I mean, they are whack. They are so bad. It's like, how can I say this without sounding too incendiary? They go woke in the military. They open up the borders. They shut down American energy independence. Then they pump $5 trillion of debt without any purpose, shoving it into their green, lobbying groups and spreading the money. Then the money has no place to go, and suddenly you're watching what happens. Housing prices in Texas, it's crazy. People are selling houses. I'm thinking of selling mine. Why? Well, you could sell it for like $1 million, $1.5 million. It's not worth that, but people will pay for it. Why? They got cash. It's like we flooded the game with monopoly money, and people are trying to figure out how to park it in something they could store value in. So what I'm saying is, as things are starting to go down here with the United States, I'm watching with fascination. I'm saying, oh my God, this is like committing national suicide. It's what Mercedes and I wrote about. Al-Qaeda has just stolen an election. They ran down the aisles with box cutters, and they stormed into the cabin, and they locked the door, and they took over the plane, and now all their policies are disastrous, right on down to drag queen hour for your 5-year-old and critical race theory for your 7-year-old. It's a multi-generational virus almost in terms of policy application. But then I sat back and saw something nobody's talking about. China. God is so cool. It's like the Lord says, yeah, you know, you guys are experiencing the fruit of your choices. You know, the Bible says choose life, choose whom you're going to serve. Well, if the country is still infatuated with these alien ideas that are hostile to God, to the foundation of America's success and to faith, let them get the taste of what it's like to have that. Maybe when they get their taste, they might not want it, like the prodigal son. Maybe when they wake up with crime and $7 to $10 gasoline and these other problems, maybe they'll think about, gee, it was so much better before, and they'll turn back. That's kind of like where I'm praying, and many of us are prophesying America's at the decision point, and maybe the pain is to get worse for them to come to their senses, like a prodigal. So here's the other side. God is so great. China is in a perfect position to take over the game, the whole game board. Then they had like 5, 6, 7% GDP while we're shrunk down to 2. Now we're truncated in a recession, and it's pretty much, we're in serious trouble. But then what does the sovereign God of the nations do? China's poised to win. So they pull a Biden. They start making stupid decisions themselves. This is like, I see the sovereignty of God, and it's like, God, you're so much bigger than I thought. It's like the Lord says, nobody's going to be able to take that dragon down. I think I'm going to tap the brakes. So what does China do? They became infatuated with a zero-tolerance COVID policy. Now, first of all, you can live with COVID. The Omicron variant, when it gets out there, is like a flu. But somehow within the insular world of the Chinese dictatorship, they actually, just like the liberals in Washington, they seduce themselves into a delusion. And the delusion is, we will use our power, our strength, and our might to crush COVID. And while we're doing it, we'll reinforce our hand of strength over the nation and show the nations how China is the trustworthy nation to deal with problems. They're always advertising who they are. Xi goes out to Davos and he does a song and dance because he sees America's coming down. China wants to be the global world ruler and the global economy, and they want the glory of China on exhibition. So they do what they do best. They thuggishly crack down on controlling their country, and what they did was they put their entire economy into a massive spasm of contraction. The great engine of China's economic power has suffered the same self-inflicted wound that we did to ourselves leaving Afghanistan. We didn't have to do it that way. For some stupid reason, we just shot ourselves. China's in the process of shooting itself. And what's even, I hesitate to use the word funny because it's not funny for the people, but they're doing it in Beijing next. They're locking down their cities because they're infatuated with the idea that they're going to stop all the COVID cases, not stopping to realize, which is strange to me because they seem to be so ruthlessly pragmatic. You don't have to stop all the COVID cases. This variant ain't going to kill you, but they don't want any. So they've shut down cities the size of New York, 2 or 3 of them. There's a news curtain over China, so you don't hear it like you ought to hear it. You know more about what Johnny Depp's wife, did in the bedroom than you know about what's going on with 1 billion people in China. That's the news blackout. But what's happening is the data's coming out because the supply chain globally is affected by China. So China is shooting themselves in the foot by shutting down their economy. And they're experiencing some new numbers now that has the world going, well, I don't know if I want to go to Wuhan. I don't want to go to Wuhan, to the yuan for currency. Because the yuan, the dollar, as bad as it is, at least it has a track record of, the rebounding. But the yuan is in trouble. What does North Korea do? Russia, Iran, China, North Korea. There's your 4 empires of darkness that are set against the EU and the United States. And each of them is actually shooting themselves. We got a lot more to cover, but we can't do it right now. We'll be right back after this brief break. You know, people still ask me all the time, Lance, are you still friends with Mike Lindell? Of course, Mike and I are on a regular first. We just call each other whenever we need each other's encouragement. But, you know, I find that I don't have to call Mike when I'm slipping into these slippers. I have various different styles of Mike's slippers. And this one is, of course, the favorite, the gray suede with the snug back on it because it's got the indoor-outdoor sole on it, the 4-ply cushiony interior with the whole fur. The fur is so much like rabbit fur, and then it's got the silk stitched out exterior. My favorite one for the late night, but during the day I like to slip on. You know, you get in and out of bed real quick. You don't want to have to mess around. You kind of like, you know, if you're like my age, you go up in the middle of the night. Well, this was the one I used in the middle of the night journeys around the house, you know, wandering around, for instance, because this one slips on and slips off so easy. But you know what I love? The bathrobe. It's probably, if you guys, people are telling me now, like, Lance, I've got everything. Well, some of you don't, because I found out that I ordered medium and I should have got large. So, you know, I've got the large bathrobe now on order because I ordered the medium by accident. But we're going to be doing our late night shows, and I'm going to be asking you guys what your preferred Mike Lindell stuff is. MyPillow.com, use promotion code Lance. You can get the same stuff I've got for 40, 50, 60% off. MyPillow.com, and use the code Lance. This guy's such a patriot. We all love him, and we support him 100%. Mike Lindell, we're praying for you. Putin goes into Ukraine, theoretically thinking that he's going to have a military victory and be able to establish dominant control of the Donbas region, which is largely ethnically Russian anyway. And whether you like it or not, with all the fake news you hear, and Sean Hannity and Mark Levin are no better than anyone else in this, the Donbas region has had a long period of being persecuted as Russians by the ethnic antagonism of Ukrainian battalions. So they've been kind of like, there's been a story we haven't covered properly, which is about the atrocities happening on the region of Ukraine that overlaps with Russia. So Putin went in there. He thought he was going to be able to get, I think, a lot more control of Ukraine, maybe even be hailed as a deliverer because of how corrupt the Ukrainian government is. But it didn't work out that way. Worse yet, Russia's economy is revealed as being a paper tiger. It's not as strong as people thought it was. Its military is not a threat. And how do you know that? Because he warned Sweden and Finland not to join NATO. This was the saber rattling even before he went in to neutralize Ukraine from not joining NATO. Well, guess what? Finland and Sweden just sent a message to Putin saying, we actually are going to go to NATO. And Putin very civilly said, well, look, it's on, you know, we have a relationship. You're on our border. I'll tell you what, as long as you don't put nuclear weapons in your country facing us, you won't see us putting nuclear weapons on your border facing you. Let's not escalate this. He's actually acting more sane than our American media is covering. What I'm trying to tell you guys is China, God just tapped the brakes on China. America looked like it was going down, but now with November coming up, with the backlash coming governmentally, it looks like God is giving grace to America to recover its cockpit. We're storming it back and getting Al-Qaeda out of the seats. Now, damage has been done to this plane. Ain't no doubt about it. But it doesn't have to crash. China, on the other hand, was poised to take full advantage of our weakness, but it looks like they're crushing themselves economically right now. Russia didn't have to do what it did in Ukraine, and it actually screwed up its own economy. I know they've gone to the ruble with gold backing, et cetera, but they're not in a strong place. This is their bleeding money right now. So they can't afford to go for, not to mention Putin is sitting there going through cancer, intervention, as is she, for some reason, had an aneurysm. The blackout's on him. The world rulers are also, screwed up. And then what does North Korea do? You know what they use North Korea for? China uses North Korea as their proxy bad boy. And when they want to start poking the bear in the West, what they do is North Korea sends up missiles and does provocative stuff and tries to pick, superficial fights with Japan. And it's just like they become the bad boy down there. They get permission to be like a little pit bull that troubles the neighbors. But what did they do? They're taking their cue from China, saying, oh my gosh, we're locking down. Is that what we're doing? Well, I'm locking down. So they have like the Omicron variant finally is on the rage up there in North Korea. And what are they doing? They're locking the whole country down, which they're already in poverty to begin with. But that means that they're in a severe disadvantage. They can't do anything because they're freaking out over Omicron variant of COVID. So the Asians have a weird relationship with this thing that we've gotten through in the West. We've come to grips with this thing. My point, I'm giving you the global scenario you don't get in the news, and you don't get it in profits, because profits and news don't mix. They don't cover each other well. China, North Korea, Russia are all being knocked back. It's as though God says, I'm jerking the slack out of this. I'm pulling the lion back. You're not off the leash. God just pulled them back. The same way we were acting stupid with our government, they're acting stupid. But it's not international, it's intra-decisional. They're doing it to themselves so that we're not going towards war. You can't blame other countries for what these decisions are. These are all self-sabotaging judgments. God is so big, he is causing these countries to judge themselves and to limit their own power. God is in control of the nations, is what I'm trying to say. Ladies and gentlemen, God is the God of history. God is the God. He's not just out there. He didn't just set the clock in motion and take a vacation and come back to go check us out at the end of history. He's actively engaged in answering the prayers of the nations. Do you not think that the suffering church in China is praying? Do you think 100 million of your brothers and sisters aren't praying with the lockdown and with the aggressiveness of the Communist Party? Don't you think that they're praying for their nation? You bet they're praying, just like we're praying for ours. And what we're seeing here, I believe, is that God is taking the cosmic scales and he's adjusting the pace at which end-time events go. And I think that what we're seeing is the brakes getting tapped in terms of the one world government, one world economy. They wanted to use COVID as a mechanism for global governance. That's what a lot of people are freaking out now because the World Health Organization is being given powers over nations by the cooperation of nations so that they could, theoretically, they could shut down, they could have more power to dictate what happens in countries in order to handle future plagues and crises. But you know what? The truth is, as long as the United States exists in the world and our system of government can have elections that are free and unfettered and unmanipulated, which is where we're battling right now, we're going to be a thorn in the flesh to the devil as a nation, because we will resist surrendering ourselves to the authority of a foreign elite. It is anathema to the American DNA to have to become subordinate to someone else's power to decide our fate. And so that once that issue starts to become more clear, you're going to see the voting populists put pressure on their representatives to say, heck no, you're not shutting down Florida. Governor DeSantis isn't going to shut down Florida because Brussels, Belgium, and Beijing say that there's a health issue. It'll be worked out in Florida. That's where we're heading in this country. The states themselves are going to push back and decide sovereignty. If you're not going to represent me as a nation, I'm going to represent my state as a state. And the United States really doesn't have a great mechanism for dealing with that, short of a civil war, which no politician is going to win office by advocating. So here we are in this global moment where the scales are balanced. And then what happens in the midst of it? May 14th, I'm made aware of the fact that there is a sign in the heavens, and it's going to be a blood moon and a total eclipse. It's a rare phenomenon, and it happens to be happening at exactly on the same date as curiously enough, as the celebration of Israel's independence as a nation. And I'm always interested in Israel as a part of the time clock of God's end time activity, as I am interested in the signs of the sun, the moon, and the stars, because God speaks through the cosmos. And while they can be overdone by zealous, prophetic personalities, it can be undercovered because of cynicism or ignorance. Let's take a look at this. Luke chapter 21, verse 24. As a Christian, I'm interested in what Jesus says. We're in this fourth turning, this curious period of time, which is a period of time every 80 to 90 years in the United States, we're literally going to a crucible that determines whether or not we can exist as a nation. We're a Gentile experiment in self-government. And it's Christianity that has kept this country cohesive. And as Christianity is mocked and blocked and segregated and isolated into its quarantine corner of church activity, we're seeing America gradually disintegrating. But not for long, because the people of God are the people that are rising up to reclaim their own government, their own nation. But look at what Jesus says here about Israel, because May 14th, May 14th, they celebrated their Independence Day. Now, where's that verse I've got here about Jerusalem trodden under foot of men? Luke 21, verse 24. Jesus says, they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive unto all nations, and Jerusalem will be trodden or trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. All right, Mercedes, we wrote about this in our book, and we discovered, and I have to thank Chuck Missler for this, actually. We discovered that Israel is a far bigger piece of the time clock of God's prophetic activity than I had thought. Even though I got a Jewish background on my dad's side, I never really saw it so clearly. What did we learn about Jerusalem and the Gentiles?
Well, if I remember correctly, it's like our first chapter in the book, but we talk about the regathering of Israel, that it's the only nation that had been dispersed throughout the entire globe and then regathered again 70 years from the time it became a nation to the time that Trump moved the embassy. It was 70 years to the day. And so there's some sort of prophetic time clock that involves Israel being established as a nation. And then also, like you're saying, it's like there's the times where Israel and there's the times for Gentiles. And then when that times for Gentiles ends. I know you can do a lot better at explaining all of that, but basically my takeaway is there's a prophetic time clock that nobody's really paying attention to that involves Israel.
When we come back, I'm going to give you 12 key points, powerful, strange coincidences that tell you God is about to do something for deliverance for North America, because America ain't done yet, and we are holding back and restraining the lawlessness that wants to emerge in a global government. See you again on the next broadcast.
Thanks for listening to this Lance Wallnau broadcast. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe and share the episode. See you tomorrow.
When I was in an island with Annabelle for vacation, we couldn't get Netflix, we couldn't get Amazon, we're really stuck. Loved the island. Then I found out about ExpressVPN with 94 countries with high-speed connections. And I realized that with one click, I could actually get access to servers and stuff outside of the limitation of where I was. But then I also discovered something. When you're going online, you're being exposed. We're finding out stories all the time about people being doxxed. I mean, it's a political agenda to find out personal information about you and expose it. But whether you're shopping or whether you're just connecting at a cafe or whether you're at the office, if you want to protect your identity, what you're doing, the websites you go to, the conversations you have, whether it's on a phone, a tablet, a computer, or just through a router, no matter where you are, you can expand the number of options you've got for what you get access to, and you could totally insulate and protect yourself with online privacy, security, and the best state-of-the-art encryption services. It's all through expressvpn.com/Lance. You go there and you're going to get 30, 60, or 90 days worth of free training. I guess it's a money-back guarantee and a trial. But I'm talking about lightning quick connectivity, multiple locations, the ability to go to all kinds of sites, regardless of the limitation of the local government or the local place. 160 locations in 94 countries, and all of it secure. No one can track you. That's what I love about ultra-fast, totally secure, global VPN. So go to, once again, expressvpn.com/Lance. Do what I do. Do what my staff does, do what my friends do, and protect your privacy and expand your